Hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. I'm still trying to figure out, ooh, you can see like most of my monitor there. I'm still trying to figure out like this whole streaming setup thing as far as like starting and letting people know that, hey, I do this stream. Usually I stream in the morning, like it's 8:18 right now in the morning, Mountain Time, MST in the United States. So there's not a lot of people that are probably looking at streams right now because it's Wednesday morning. Everybody's getting ready for work and things like that. But that's okay. This is where I paint. This is the time that I paint. And yeah, it has to work with me. It has to work with my schedule because me painting, me getting my artwork done is the most important that I think, right? Okay. Anyway, so what are we doing today? Here's what we're doing. I want to show my screen and I'm going to pop over real quick to make sure that it's showing correctly. Yep, it's showing correctly. So I want to start here and I want to talk to you about how I start my entire painting process, how to start an oil painting from the beginning. And it's my process. And that's the first like caveat, I guess, disclaimer that I want to talk to you about on this. This is the way that I start an oil painting. This is not the way to start an oil painting. The most wonderful thing about this art game that we're in is that it's infinite with a million possibilities on how to start. And we go through or we move through this kind of journey of beginning as an artist. And we begin to figure out, oh, I like this, I like that, I like these materials, I like doing starting it this way, I like using it that way. And we figure out our own process. So what I want to do here is give you some ideas of how maybe you can add some processes, that's a good word, to the way you start an oil painting to make it a bit more interesting, helpful, awesome, to maybe get closer to a guarantee of a better painting at the end of the painting process, because I've been doing this for 14 years straight every single day. And this is a process that I've been building and changing over that time, and it continually changes. So that's the disclaimer. Take from this what you will. It is not the end all be all process. And please, please, please ask me questions at the end of this. Now, I'm on my screen here. Whenever I move back to my drafting table, I'll be able to see the chat and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully there's not any kind of bots like spamming my chat or whatever. We shall see. I'll deal with that in the future. At some point, I need a second monitor so I can monitor my chat. Okay. So how to start an oil painting. The very first place that I start normally when I'm doing things is I have this bank of images. So on my computer here, I have a folder called To Paint, Things to Paint, and I have a ton of images in here. And mostly these are all images that I've taken. They're self-portraits of me. They're images of my wife, my partner, well, my partner, not my wife, anyway, and other friends, things like this, images that I capture because I'm like, ooh, in the moment, I think those are going to be pretty cool. And then also I have other projects like Elegant Expression, where I use a lot of resources online, like art references that I've purchased from Satinezilla or different photographic creators online. You can see a lot of them through ArtStation, but I usually go directly to those artists, those photographers, and buy from them. That's usually where I start. And I usually have like some kind of idea what I want to do, like self-portrait, figure, some idea that I want to work within, something that I'm trying to figure out within myself. Like right now with a series of paintings I'm trying to find that balance between expressive mark making and accuracy within the drawing. And I want to kind of run you through like my thought process, my brain within this whole starting of a new oil painting surrounding the images that I collect. That's part of it. And then also kind of picking those images based on, a generalized idea that something I want to create, and then going from there. I know that was like word salad. Sorry. So usually the first thing I'll do, and part of what I'm doing, I'm going to show this image here. This is going to be the image that I'm going to paint from. There is, I'm part of a Patreon by Nicholas Uribe, and I like looking at myself on this camera, so it paused. Anyway, Nicholas Uribe, I follow him just religiously. He's amazing freaking artist. I love everything he does. He has a Patreon that I follow, and they have a monthly challenge that they're doing, like a monthly, not challenge, but themed work. And they're doing Swift portraits. And it's all about this kind of connection between expressive mark making and like the accuracy within a portrait, basically. Like holding both of those at the same time, expressiveness, but also looks like the face you want to actually paint. Those kind of things, which is very difficult because they're opposing forces. How can you be very expressive with your mark making, yet keep everything in the right place? It's very difficult. So I like this image. I really like this image. And I painted something similar to this before, and I'll get into that eventually. But we're going to start here in Photoshop. And I'm going to run through some artists because not only is this for you, but it's also for me at the same time. Like everything I talk about right here is more kind of like, hey, here's a reminder for you, Chris. Here are things you need to think about. And it helps me figure out this whole painting process a bit more. When I can talk about it, when I can verbalize it, when I can get the language, so important. Attaching all of this visual information to language, when I can get those two connected, understanding comes through that, and I have a better direction and a better purpose for my artwork. Okay. So we're going to start with Kehinde Wiley. Wiley. I love Kehinde Wiley. And if you can imagine like this kind of spectrum, right, where on one end is a very detailed painting, very smooth surface, very naturalistic. We're trying to make, can I make this bigger? There we go. Where we're trying to make the painting look exactly like the photo that we're working from. Kehinde Wiley works from photos. I know this. And I've seen this painting in person. It's at SAM, the Seattle Art Museum in Seattle, when I lived in Washington. And I distinctly remember kind of looking really closely in this painting, zooming in. Oh, it's getting pixelated. I don't have like super high res image on this button, and how specific and how detailed that button was. Every single transition within there, like, you don't see brushstrokes, okay? Brushstrokes are not visible. That's not what Kehinde Wiley is trying to do here. And he is on one end of the spectrum, very detailed. He doesn't want to show the mark making. Like, this is not paint anymore. I want to hide the idea that this is paint and make it look exactly like a photo. It's not exactly hyper photorealism, because I've seen hyper photorealism and it looks exactly like a photo. This is definitely departed from a photo a bit, and especially in some instances. I mean, you look at this kind of orange on the top of the head there, we get a little bit into the mark making where it looks a little bit more like a painting. But for the most part, this is about the subject matter and the voice, what he's trying to say with this painting, rather than it being paint on a canvas. Okay, so that's one end of the spectrum. And we're going to move through a bunch of different images that I picked out of my huge bank of images. We're going to talk about that movement from super detailed to less detail. And I want you guys to see what I see within these paintings and how we reference detail, or at least I have referenced detail in a lot of ways. But when and thinking a painting is very detailed, but when you really look at it, you can see where that detail kind of falls away when you begin to analyze these paintings and you see more of the paint. So one end of the spectrum, super detailed. On the other end of the spectrum, it's more about the paint on the canvas rather than anything else. Like it's still the subject, but paint and mark making comes first. So the next artist I want to move into is Jeremy Lipking, Lipking. Is this as far zoomed in? And again, here we are, very detailed, quote unquote, detailed looking painting, right? Every hair strand on this painting, look at that. This person, Jeremy Lipking, has went through and decided that they're going to do all of these hair strokes. There's like 1,000, 2,000 strokes within this hair alone, probably the same within the face. But there's still a sense of paint here. We can kind of feel mark making, especially in the background here, where we can see even like the width of the brush stroke, where it started and where it ended. A lot of places, I'm going to do 100% zoom on this. Oh, I wish I could zoom in further. Man, getting super high detailed imagery is very difficult. So definitely in the focus area of the painting, we have much more detail, very soft strokes. It's less about the paint strokes, the mark making, and more about the transition of the form, describing that face, all the detail in the eye, all of the transitions through the cheek and into the neck. But as we move down this painting, we begin to see more paint, more ideas of painting, more ideas of surface. Look here in the arm. Jeremy Lipking decided, you know what? I'm not even going to paint this. This is just the canvas showing through. Some transparency, the background, nothing but brushstrokes. It begins to devolve into paint. That is super intentional. Jeremy's looking at this painting and saying, you know what? I want you to focus up here where all the detail is. And then I'm going to give less attention to things below. And you can see that transition. There's almost that spectrum between detail and no detail from the top to the bottom of this painting. And it's on, even this painting has its own kind of spectrum of detail to no detail. But I'm going to move through some different artists as well. Let me check my chat real quick. No chats. I didn't think a lot of people would be watching right now, but that's totally fine. It's going to be on YouTube. People can watch this later. So another painting by Jeremy Lipking. This may be a self-portrait. Can I make it larger? No. Okay. It's going to get a bit pixelated the further I go in. But here, same thing. Portrait, exactly, almost exactly the same. We have a profile of the figure, a little bit less of a profile here, almost exact profile, I think, but a bit less detail. We're seeing more paint here than we are a direct copy or photorealistic from the photo. It's almost an exact location. I could tell that these two paintings, if I go back and forth, almost probably on the exact same place, maybe. I mean, look at the composition, almost exact same composition. But there's a decision here to make this painting more about the paint and more about the mark making. So there is a transition away from more detailed. And you can see, like, go back to Kendi Wiley. Like, we don't see brushstrokes here. And then we move into here, we see a little bit more brushstrokes. And here it's a bit more about the mark making. So we're moving on that spectrum from left to right, from super detailed, not about paint, to more about paint. And, you know, the one thing I have to say, that this one's not too bad. Look at the signature up there. It's not really, you know, poking you in the eye, you know, but here, come on, Jeremy. Is it more about your signature or is it about the painting? I mean, put that signature down here so it's a bit hidden, right? Ugh, I kind of hate that. It's one reason why I don't sign my paintings. But, you know, probably their gallery and everything is like, hey, no, we need to see your signature because that's what makes all the money. But anyway, let's continue on. We're going to go back in time, 1800s, or whenever Anders Zorn was alive. Zorn. I paint with the Anders Zorn palette. Love the Anders Zorn palette. And I'll talk about that all the time. And here, I mean, these are some of the paintings when we think Anders Zorn, or at least when I think Anders Zorn, is like, oh, he's detailed, right? He has these beautifully detailed portraits. They're gorgeous. I can see, all the information there is about this person, their face, the hand, this beautiful puppy that's there. Look at that. Look how gorgeous it is. But then when you really analyze this, when we begin to analyze this idea of detail, in my head at least, detail as far as what it may be, and we look at this painting, and let's zoom in on this hand here. And you can see this with John Singer Sargent and Sorolla as well. I don't have them on here, but very similar. I mean, this hand is nothing. There's nothing there. And then when we zoom out, let's say maybe like we're walking to this painting, right? It's in the museum. We're coming up, we're further away from it, and we're going, wow, look at the beauty of that hand. I know where the placement of those fingers are. The thumb, I can see that there's two rings. There's a ring on the thumb and a ring on the forefinger. I can see all this. I can see the necklace, that's flowers on the dress, all of the fur with that puppy and their paws and the face. And I could tell it's this person. And then as we get closer in the museum, it devolves into paint. Look at this brushstroke here. What were you thinking, Anders? What were you thinking? I mean, look how brave that is. I'm just going to take this chunk of green, okay? And that's probably just one stroke. And half of that brushstroke on the brush is a darker green. The other half is a lighter green. Maybe it mixed with the wet paint that was on there. And he's just like, bam, that's good. Probably did that, stood back and said, yep, that one stroke does it. So brave. Oh my gosh, just absolutely beautiful. But you can see how it devolves into paint. Paint and texture and mark making is important here. This is the kind of control that I would love to have with my paintings. This ability to be expressive, to put it down once. Look at these flowers on the dress. To put it down once, one single stroke, to be brave about it and say, yeah, that's it. That's all I need. That's absolutely beautiful. And, to still have that ability to focus in like the face of the dog, the puppy there, and to focus in on the face of the individual, keep it expressive, just enough to say, this is this person, but also have that kind of style of expression. And this looks like it's faded over the years. I bet you it was a lot brighter when it first was painted, but just absolutely beautiful. You can see moving from here to here to here to here. We're devolving. We are devolving away from super detail and into mark making. Okay, let's move on. This is Nick Alm, A-L-M. And we've kind of moved back. Actually, Nick Alm could probably be before Anders Zorn. Look how detailed this is. I know it gets pixelated as I zoom in, but still, look at like the detail in the face. You can tell that Nick Alm knows what he's doing. He knows how to paint a face beautifully with all these subtle transitions, and in the nose and the head and the cheek and some places in the eyes and the lips, the brushstrokes just devolve into nothing. There's like, it's more face than it is brushwork. But then look at that brushstroke here. I'm going to zoom back out. Like, oh my God, what is that? What's going on there, Nick? What is that? But, I don't mind it. It's still there. Look how brave that is. And then I don't need anything but the face. I'm just going to put a few brushstrokes here. And then, this crazy signature down at the bottom is very distracting. Thank you, Mr. Alm. And then that's all. Like, just like very thin washes down at the bottom. It devolves into brushwork. But does it detract? No. This is an artist. And, as we'll move into this, we'll see artists that are removing things that they feel doesn't contribute to the painting at all. So if it isn't absolutely necessary, or is it if it's isn't absolutely needed or part of the purpose, then it's eliminated because it's unnecessary. We'll see more and more of that. So Nick Alm, another one. This, oh, I love this one by Nick Alm. Beautiful, beautiful painting. It's all about how this light, the shaft of light, is hitting this person that's on a pillow, maybe in a bed. I don't know, because look how it devolves down here into nothing. The bottom left of this painting devolves into nothing. It's nothing but brushwork. If I can zoom in here, and it's just very thin brushwork. And then here, it's all about the attention to detail. And look at that beautiful, like, even if it's pixelated, you can tell this. The beautiful transition of this white, of the sunlight, the extreme sunlight hitting the bridge of this person's nose. And if you know anything, well, if you've studied light and how it transitions into shadow, there's this like edge that gets super saturated. Look how beautiful that is. Oh, amazing. More about paint and paint application and paint itself, and playing with this amazing idea of like, yes, I'm making a painting. This is paint, but there's certain situations or certain places where that paint goes away, and its face, its lips, its nose. But then here where the hair is, it's just like this crazy brave brushstroke. Oh my goodness. So difficult. So that's Nick Alm, A-L-M. Check him out. And then our favorite, Rembrandt. Ooh, let me back out on Rembrandt here. Let's go 0. I love this painting. This painting is actually at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. You can see it in person in Washington, D.C., one of my most favorite galleries in all the world. And what I love about this painting is it's Rembrandt, number one, 400 years and no one's painted as good as Rembrandt. Like, how is that possible? Like, I don't think anybody will ever reach the just godlike status, the GOAT, Rembrandt, right? But as you're far away from this painting, you're like, oh, look how gorgeous the light on that portrait is. Look how detailed it is. Look at all the information there. But then you get closer and closer and closer. And then when you get up onto the painting, and as us artists, we go into a museum and we're like setting off alarms because we're like 2 inches, our nose is like an inch away from the painting. We're trying to figure out how they did this, right? And you can see in this, look at this eye. Nothing but brushwork. That gray is the canvas there. Rembrandt painted on gray, I guess, at least for this painting. And that's what you see. And then it's nothing but impasto. You can see every little brush mark in the hair over here. You can see where Rembrandt scraped into like wet paint. Oh man, so good. And then if we go down further, remember this portrait here. And we're talking about Jeremy Lipking moving away from the head down into like less detail at the bottom. We're going to do the same thing with Rembrandt. I mean, like, everything devolves into nothing. There's nothing here. It's like burnt umber wash, and the only light area that is shown is mainly where the canvas is showing through a bit, maybe a little bit change in the value or hue within that paint, maybe a little bit of lightness, and then, excuse me, some addition of opacity within this hand, just barely describing that hand. Masterful. I mean, ultimate godlike status right there. But the devolving of detail to brushwork. And I want to remind you again, what I'm looking at here, what I'm thinking about in my head is we always remember these paintings as being so detailed and all this information. And when we start to paint, we think, you know what, we need to lay in every single little piece of information about, the hair on the lip, the mustache, all the little folds in the eyes need to be so detailed and rounded perfectly. And we're sitting there with this little tiny brush and we're perfectly transitioning that. No, you can put it in, or you can try to put it in like Rembrandt, right? And just be very simple. Okay, let's move on. Oh, this is Greg Manchess. Manchess. I did a mentorship with him at smartschool.com, which is fantastic. You can see his painting here of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is absolutely amazing. Can I zoom in? There we go. Let's go full. That's as full as we can do. The great thing about Greg Manchess, especially watching him paint, is how much he uses a palette knife for almost everything. And as we zoom out on this, I mean, this is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You know this portrait. If you've been alive for almost any time whatsoever, been into any city whatsoever, know just a little bit about history, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how this person at 35 years old changed the world. And his face. This is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But let's zoom in. Look at this chunky paint. How does that devolve into Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and still read as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? How does that happen? Finding that balance, that zen between expressiveness and accuracy and still grabbing that likeness. Look at this brushstroke over the nostril of the nose just to lighten it out. So brave, so amazing. Do we need to have all that detail to express everything that we want to say with a portrait and still make it look like, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? No. Greg Manchess says, no, I'm going to challenge you to really think about the differences in just paint application in all these ways. There's so many places where the white of the canvas is showing through. Look at that hand, devolved into nothing. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Real quick, going to jump over. Oh, hey, Matthew. Welcome. Glad you're watching. I'm barely looking at the chat. Sorry, I'm still trying to set up the stream so a chat will show someplace else. But thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. I won't be able to get to that chat very often because I'm deep into this. So we're starting to devolve even further. We started here, Kehinde Wiley, Jeremy Lipking, Anders Zorn, who could probably be placed a little bit after Nick Alm, right? And then Rembrandt, and then Greg Manchess. Like, we can go further. I still have a bunch of paintings here. We can go a lot further. Who's the next one? Oh, Alex Kanefsky. How do you... I'm not sure how you spell Kanefsky. Let's resources, art inspiration. If you're not collecting artists digitally right now for inspiration, get on it on your computer, wherever. So Kanefsky, Kaekanevsky, Kanefsky, Alex Kanefsky. Amazing, amazing. Now, I would probably say that him and Greg Manchess are pretty close. I mean, look at this chunky paint put on in a million different ways. I have never seen Kanefsky paint, but by looking at this figure, he goes from impasto with paint right out of the tube, big chunks of paint that's probably dried, all the way to like glazing, stippling, what's the word I'm looking for? Scumbling paint, like the entire gambit of how to apply paint with a brush, a palette knife, a credit card, throwing it from the other side of the room. I mean, he's all over the place with it, and he's able to bring that together and make just an absolutely beautiful painting. Look at Alex Kanefsky, but we're devolving a bit. One thing that I want you to realize within this, or at least see within these paintings, that there's one thing that has been in common from the beginning to the end, except for maybe Kehinde Wiley. Kehinde Wiley is like detailed all over. like if you're into hyper, photorealism, detail all over the place. But as we move from that detailed spectrum on the left to maybe abstraction on the far right, and we begin to devolve, you can tell that all of these artists, where their focal point is where the most detail is. I mean, even Anders Zorn, most detail within the dog's head and the portrait here. But then look at that chair thing on the left or the background. I mean, it just turns into abstraction, right? So as we get further away from the focus, we get less and less, quote unquote, detailed and more about expression. We're seeing that with every single painting that we look at. Same all the way through. It's no different with Alex Kanevsky, very contemporary painter. This person is alive today and amazing. Ugh, man, I wish I could watch them paint. But where they want you to look will have the most detail. It gets less brushy, less abstract, less kind of brave, really kind of pushing the envelope there and saying, this is the detail that we want. But finding that balance between the expression and, an accurately drawn figure. I mean, I can feel the roundness of this figure's back, the arm, the thigh here, the leg. I can feel every part of it. It doesn't feel incorrect. Sometimes when I paint a figure or a portrait, there are spots within it that's like, it feels kind of weird, feels kind of off in some way. And that's all about the drawing accuracy in some ways, right? Being able to hold that together with the expression is like, GOAT status, right? Okay, let's move on. My favorite, Mr. Awesome. Oh, I hope he watches this. He's going to get, totally embarrassed. This is Nicholas Uribe, Uribe. Follow Mr. Uribe. He is absolutely amazing. He's influenced me in so many ways, probably overly influenced. Honestly, I have to watch out how much I'm influenced by Mr. Uribe, and I have to constantly kind of balance my influence with him and figure out, okay, don't copy Mr. Uribe. Do your own thing. Be influenced, but find your way through it. But here we have even further devolvement, and the most wonderful thing about Nicholas Uribe is his ability to, or his openness with sharing these super high-res images on his Patreon, on his website, and things like this. Oh, so amazing. Beautiful, beautiful, just devolving into brushwork. But look at that nose. I am zoomed in to like 100% on this, like so much detail, but I can still feel that roundness of the nose. And it's like 4 or 5 brush strokes or something. Oh, I love watching him paint too. It's absolutely amazing. So here we're devolving even further. More about paint on the canvas than it is about this kind of perfect rendition of the face. And I have another one. This one's amazing. Look at this. Remember, I was talking about how the focus is where, time and effort, more brushstrokes, more information is put where the focus is going to be. This painting is called Do the Dew, D-E-W, the D-E-W. I love it. Man, look how beautiful this portrait is. Oh, it's gorgeous and contemporary all at the same time. I can't. I just can't. I die every time I watch him paint or look at his paintings. Just amazing. So detail here, and then watch as we go down. We're getting further away from the focus, and we begin to devolve. Look at that. We know it's a straw going into this green thing. Do we need more detail than that? No, we don't need it. And then we're devolving. This multiplication of the hands and fingers. I believe when he was painting this, the video as he was working on it called it hand spaghetti. But look at that. This is a beautiful abstract painting where as you look at it, you kind of oscillate between this idea of a hand and abstraction. I see a fingernail and then abstraction. I see a thumb and then abstraction. I love that. Oh, so much control. Let's zoom out again. so much control, so brave with just throwing things down and really understanding that's enough. That's all I need. And I'm describing enough there. Nicholas Uribe. Amazing. Okay, next artist. We're going into digital art. Don't forget digital art, people. Please don't forget digital art. There's so much you can learn from digital art. Like, we tend to want to separate these mediums, right? Where, oh, if it's not oil paint, then I'm not going to look at it, right? Don't do that. Look at watercolor, acrylic, digital, everything that's out there. We can learn so much from it. So this is Craig Mullins, Mullins, Craig Mullins, the godfather of digital painting. Like, there probably wouldn't be much out there as far as digital artwork. Maybe there would, I don't know, but it wouldn't have been taken as far as it is right now without Craig Mullins, the keystone person for digital artwork, honestly. And okay, thank you. Beautiful. Look at the mark making here. And of course, because it's digital, can I zoom in more? Because it's digital, there's some things that, it doesn't look so good when I'm zoomed in. There's some things that we really can't do, right? And traditional that digital does. Like, for instance, there's this little transparent brush stroke that goes perfectly over the background there. It's so pixelated. Sorry about that. Don't have really big images of these. That, is like almost impossible to do on oil paint. Yeah, we can glaze that, but not really. It's not going to look exactly the same, right? It's going to be a bit different. But look at all this craziness over here. I mean, I think he's drawn like an eye in the background, maybe it's a flower or something. I don't know. There's this idea of like scraping in. I don't know how he did that digitally. It's like he's scraping into the paint, just like we would if the paint was wet and we scraped into it in order, to make it look like the canvas is coming through. And he knows this because Craig Mullins has painted in oil and watercolor and probably acrylic and everything else and has done super well in it. But this brevity of brushwork and allowing it to devolve into mark making, but still communicating everything that needs to be communicated. Beautiful. Let's look at another one. Oh, look how we devolve even further. I am going to zoom in on this one because it's basically just abstraction that, the further you get away from it, the more you see a face, but just playing. I love the play within this, just having so much fun within playing with texture. And as I think about that, I'm thinking about Olga Cremon. This person here, I have to be very careful with. Yes, I'm streaming live. I can't hear you. I need to go and I need to know if you need to call. Yeah, at noon. I'm driving out with Pam. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, not sorry, because, family comes first within the stream. Had to talk to my wife for a little bit, our partner. Oh, trying to get used to pronouns on all that, right? Okay. Olga Cremon. I'm thinking about Olga Cremon because within their artwork, and like I said, I have to be kind of careful with what I show here because I do a lot of figurative work, and I was just banned on Twitch for 24 hours because I showed a butt yesterday on a painting. So, okay, fine, whatever. But look how much Olga plays with brushwork. I wonder, can you see this? Is it actually showing? Let me go to the stream. Yep, you see it. Just having so much fun, detailed at the right where the figure is, and then you can see like splashes of maybe solvent on there, and then it devolves into like abstraction. So Olga Cremon. Oh, let's go back to Photoshop. Just that happy play with like brushwork, and to be able to keep that all together and still show a portrait. I'm going to start moving a little bit faster because I could talk forever about this. Oh, this is one of my favorite portraits by Craig Mullins. Just beautiful, of Clint Eastwood. We know it's Clint Eastwood. I wish I could zoom in further on this. I know it's really small. Sorry. I wish I could get really high-res images of these amazing artists. But everything devolves into just like this mark making that's just absolutely gorgeous. Just beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's devolve further into less. And, I'm going to take my medication. Life gets in the way of social media. Oh my gosh, right? Family comes first. Life and health comes before that. Yes. Always got to think about that. Okay, move on. This is Ben Hope, H-O-P-E, Ben Hope. Love Ben Hope's portraits. Just beautiful. Everything is just paint. Paint first now, and then portrait second. Ben Hope, beautiful. Here's another one by Ben Hope. Even further devolving into abstraction. It's almost like, I don't really know who that is anymore. We know it's Ben Hope. It's a self-portrait only because he put his name on it, right? But we're devolving further. We're thinking less about trying to describe the photo or the person or whatever we're looking at, and more about how can I make this paint first and the image afterwards. I want to go into Phil Hell. Now, Phil Hell is kind of really interesting. Let's see. Can I zoom in? How far can I zoom in? That's about as far as I can go. I love Phil Hell because H-A-L-E, by the way. He plays with this idea is, yes, there's paint. You see that it's paint first in a lot of ways, but he also plays with this idea of like understanding life and photos and the world in a different way. There's a confusion of what's happening. Every time I look at a lot of his paintings, I'm thinking it's almost like you took a picture or a video of some kind of action happening, and you only get like parts and pieces, and they were all melded into one. It's kind of like, on the very first Star Trek movie where, they're beaming people up with the transporter, right? And it's not working so well. They're still trying to figure it out. And Bones, the doctor, is like, I'm not doing that because, it's supposed to like take all of your molecules, break them apart, and then reassemble them in a different place. This is a Phil Hell painting. So he's taking all these ideas of images, he disassembled them all, and then on the other end of the transporter, they came together, but into something that was a little bit less human than when it started. That's Phil Hell. More abstraction, it's like, I think that's a figure doing something more about the abstraction idea, the action, the expressionism, the paint, than it is naturally expressing something, being photorealistic or naturalistic. Okay, moving on. Anne Gale. Oh, Anne Gale. I can't show a lot of Anne Gale here because I don't want to get banned off of YouTube as well, because there's a lot of nudity within Anne Gale's work. So I'm not going to show that here. Please look at Anne Gale, Gale. This is, talking about Star Trek, when you devolve a person, right, into like molecules. This is Anne Gale. Like, look at her work and you'll see that it's almost like they just turned into atoms, and the atoms are individual brushstrokes, and her ability to control that. And when you get in close, it's nothing but abstraction, devolves into nothing but paintwork. But then you pull back. The further you pull back, beautiful figure with the tonalist kind of idea throughout, very gray, very just beautiful. I can't say too much, enough about Anne Gale. I attempted to do something similar to Anne Gale, like kind of figure out this idea. Oh, it's so bad. I'll have to do it for 10 years to get even close to what she's doing. And then Eugene Carrière, French artist from 1800s, Eugene Carrière. Sorry for my French pronunciation of anything. This is like a progression, and thank you so much, Nicholas Uribe, for showing me or really giving me an understanding of Nicholas Carrière. Carrière. Love French. It's a beautiful language. But I had a call with Nicholas Uribe when I was mentoring with him, and he started out showing me where Eugene Carrière started out, which was, fairly detailed impressionist kind of painting, where it was all about the figure and describing the figure. It looked more like, when we were looking at Anders Zorn, looked more like that. And he got on this train of just, removing detail, removing hue, removing saturation, and ended up in doing paintings like this, where it's just like challenging the status quo at the time and saying, you know what, do I need more than this? No. But we can look at this and go, wow, there's barely any paint on this canvas. It's all it is. Come on, zoom in. All it is just a few strokes of dryness, maybe a little tiny bit of paint. And we can see figure at a table, maybe, and then something going on here. Really challenging, like, how little can I put down to say as much as possible, right? Moving on to Whistler. It was interesting because this painting in particular, when, 1800s Whistler, right? This painting in particular, they had, I think there was either a movie about it or a whole write-up about it, but talk about a person challenging the status quo. Showed this painting and people were in an uproar. They're like, this is just, splatter painting on a canvas. It's not a real painting. And you're selling this for like a tremendous amount of money. How in the heck are you going to get away with this, right? And this is way before abstract expressionism, but Whistler really challenging and saying, no, this is my Nocturne series. This is Fireworks. In Black and Gold, I think is the name of it. And it's all about atmosphere and paint, and not specifics, but more of an idea of the subject matter. And it's nothing but paint. We have devolved into next to nothing. Yeah, and that's where I'm going to end. I could go further into someone like Mark Rothko, which is, I think some of the height of abstraction. I could go into abstract expressionism, like Jackson Pollock, right? Who a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're just throwing paint around. Just beautiful paintings, right? Jackson Pollock. I love it, all the way from Kehinde Wiley to, even more photo hyperrealism. I love that. All the way to Jackson Pollock, Mark Rothko, everyone, that spectrum of super detail and all about like depicting the naturalism, the photorealism, all the way to Whistler and Rothko, that is just like abstraction, right? Now, Whistler is still representational. He's still representing something. Fireworks falling down in the evening, that kind of thing. Some figures there. Rothko just abstraction, more about feeling an idea than anything else. This is how I begin an oil painting. You're like, oh my God, that took like an hour to go through this, Chris. Well, these are the things that I'm thinking about. These are 100% like, okay, I want to start this painting where I'm thinking about, I'm going to go back to my face here. I'm thinking about expression and accuracy within the drawing, still representing something, but as expressive as I can, to be as brave as I can with the brushwork. And now for you, let's go back to my screen. For you, when you're looking at this, and this is the way I like looking at it, that spectrum. Here's Kehinde Wiley, and then we begin to move down the spectrum through Jeremy Lipking to Anders Zorn to Nick Alm to Rembrandt to Greg Manches, and you can see we're devolving. Alex Kanefsky, Nicholas Uribe, Craig Mullins. We're devolving. We're moving on the spectrum. Think about it like we're on a train, and all of these are different stops of less and less detail and more about expression and brushwork. And Gale, right? Eugene Callier, Whistler, right? And we decide at what point do we want to get off? At what point do we have the skill to do something similar? Now, I don't have the skill to do any of these, right? I'm working on it, you know? But at what point do I want to get off? Do I want to go as far as Whistler or Rothko? Probably not. I'll probably get off a little bit earlier. Do I want to go as far as Eugene Callier? No, probably not. And Gale, ooh, I'd love to get to that point, but I don't have the skill. Phil Hale, yes, don't have the skill. Ben Hope, yes, but I don't have the skill. Oh, probably if I would like to get off anywhere on that train, that spectrum would be Craig Mullins right now, or Nicholas Uribe, right? But I got to be very careful with Nicholas, because if I don't put some like barriers around myself with Nicholas and stop looking at his paintings, I'm going to end up painting exactly like him. Just going to copy from him because, so amazing. Just going to be Nicholas Uribe part 2.0, which will never be as good. Now I got to find myself within this idea. But we have to figure out where we're going to stop on that train. Can we push further? And if you're like, oh my God, what is this guy talking about? I would rather stay with Kehinde Wiley. It'd be like super descriptive, but maybe a little bit less like Jeremy Lipkin and Nick Alm. That's where I want to stop at. That's perfectly fine. You can stop there. Totally stop there. That's totally fine. So I'm looking at this painting here. This is my painting. Can I zoom in? Bam, look at that. High res, yay. So I love this painting. I did this months and months ago, and I think it was a little bit after having that mentorship with Greg Manches. And I was getting a bit brave, and I've tightened up recently. I've tightened up a lot. And I want to get back to this. This is reminding me a bit more of Ben Hope. Let's go back to Ben Hope and compare it. Oh, Chris, not good at all. Yeah. So not much comparison. Let's stay away from that. Oh, or we can look at, here's mine versus Rembrandt. Oh, I'm going to die. Let's not compare our work against Rembrandt. We'll just be, we'll just feel like maybe I should just burn all my artwork. Just give away all my art supplies and just burn everything else, if we start doing that comparative thing. But I love this. I like where this was. Unfortunately, this painting, I don't know where it's at. I think it's in a box somewhere, because I was painting with on a specific surface with some M. Graham paint, and I had a lot of trouble with this painting drying. So I don't think it ever dried very well. It's still a bit sticky. So all that black is just collecting nothing but dust and cat hair. It's pretty terrible. So I want to do something like it again. And I ended up on this image. So this is a self-portrait image that I took. I don't know where I was at, but I think it was the last place we lived. But I have this dark, what do you call it? Ceiling fan above my head. And for some reason, I just love that. Okay. So I want to get back on track here. Let me look at the chat real quick, see if there's anybody like spamming stuff. Lewis Wolf. Actually, the only way to start an oil painting is working on a Leonardo da Vinci painting as a surface. Working on a Leonardo da Vinci painting as a surface. Or like painting over Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah, good luck with that. I know you're kidding. It's gonna you have to paint like Leonardo da Vinci. Have to. There you go. Thanks for joining, Lewis. Appreciate it. So this is how I started painting, is getting that purpose clear, looking at some influences, and then also, I'm going to go to here, writing it down. This is so important and these are things that you can pull out. Finally, deep into this live stream, you're like, oh, these are things that I can grab onto. So I've picked the image that I want to work from. This is a self-portrait that I did. I still have to do cropping on it, because I'm working on a specific size. But answering the question, why the heck do I want to do this painting, right? Answering this question. And I already know it because it's pretty much similar to what I've been doing on the previous 5 or 6 paintings. I want to dive into texture and a bunch of different mark making, right? And I can remove this because that's basically from the previous painting. I do these Google documents for every painting that I make. That way I can reference them if the painting takes several days. I always want to come back to the purpose of the painting and remember that, because my brain is pretty slow. I have maybe one neuron left and it's working really hard. It's burning up right now. So I have to always remind myself, right? So I want to learn how to be as expressive with a surface as I can be while maintaining the essence and accuracy of the image. This is what I'm dealing with, that's what I'm trying to do, but in my own way. And I could put a bunch of images of John Singer Sargent and Sorolla and Anders Zorn and Alex Kanefsky and Rembrandt and Ben Hope and Greg Manches and Craig Mullins, and then my head would explode with all of this input, right? But then it would be maybe too referential. So the idea, this kind of like generalized idea of expression and paint first in different ways of mark making, that's combined with saying something about the texture on the reference that we're working from. I want to keep that bigger idea of that, but not like saying, oh, I want to paint like Ben Hope, or I want to paint like Nicholas Uribe, but understanding like, hey, these guys have done it in their beautiful, amazing way. And it's done with expressive brushwork and different mark making techniques and having fun and being brave about how little you can put down and still describe something. To have that general idea, but then figure out how to do it myself by not looking at them any longer, just being influenced by them, having that in the back of my head, and then coming to the painting with those generalized ideas and figuring out how my mark making is going to look. And I do have a couple paintings here that I did. I wonder if I can zoom in on this. I'm always worried about how big things are when you're watching the stream. So a couple of paintings I did just recently. This is Anger and this is Blinded. And I really like how I just went after it. I got brave on these paintings. And I'm looking at this of like, you know what? That's me. I enjoy a lot of that mark making. Is it the same as anybody else we looked at? No, it's a little bit different because I look inside my authenticity while I'm painting, and I don't analyze other paintings and do like master copies of all these other paintings to figure out their exact brushwork, but keep that general idea in there and keep saying expressive, brave, throw it down, little, whatever I need to say to get that expression. And Blinded was about being influenced by other artists, but not losing our authentic voice and finding how I do expressive brushwork that appeals to me. That's this painting here. So that's exactly what I just said. Anger was about how emotions are intrinsically linked to artistic creation. So that's a bit part of it. I was thinking on this painting, when we're thinking about expression, we're thinking about emotion. I always do this thing where I ask myself, what does an angry line look like? What does a courageous line look like? What does a sad line look like? And when you think about art in this way, when you think about emotion, right? And you say, what does that look like in a paint stroke? And then you can begin to take that language and then just kind of move it into the fundamentals of art, the aspects of art making. And you can begin to kind of play with that in the language in your head. And you can say, okay, angry line, well, it's not going to be flat and horizontal. That's a very calm line. An angry line is going to be at an angle, and it's going to be very jagged. It's going to be with a very dark piece of charcoal that's breaking apart on a white surface and be high contrast. That's an angry line. A very calm line is going to be horizontal and calm and maybe very soft on the edges, those kind of things. And if we take this emotion and we switch it into fundamentals, we can begin to describe that emotion through those fundamentals. And we think about here in a portrait that we're working on, like this is the focus, like the nose and the eyes. Maybe that's where I want more calm. And I think a bit more like Jeremy Lipking in the face and smooth things out a little bit. But then when we get into the facial hair, like the beard and the hair at the bottom, expressive, nails on the canvas, crazy mark making, really jabbing at it like a Neanderthal with a rock or something like that, right? We're thinking about things differently based on the emotion that we want to describe through those fundamentals within paint. And that's how we get really expressive. Like if you're in this painting, I was angry. I was actually angry. I had some strong emotions going on. And I was like, how can I take these strong emotions, move them through those fundamentals and put that on the canvas? And I remember doing this. Crazy music in the background to help me with that. I let go of everything. I was able to keep, the portrait pretty close as far as accuracy. Had a wonderful time with that. Afterwards, very cathartic, and I was calm at that point because I let it all out in a very creative and expressive way. Felt super authentic. Another way we can go at this kind of combination between expressive and emotion to, thinking about the fundamentals of accuracy and getting that portrait right. So it looks like Chris, or it looks like someone specifically. So how does this fit with TPP? That's the Painter's Path, because I'm working on the Painter's Path right now, online learning platform with my website, chrisbevan.com. At some point, hopefully I can get that out, but I'm just doing so much. And anyway, won't get too deep into that. So finding the balance between accuracy and expression. And then what I'll do is, this is day 1, June 10th, 2026. Oh my God, it's already 2 hours into the stream. I'm sorry. I talk forever about everything. I'll make some notes about this, about what's going on through the day, going through all the influences and getting ideas, putting those influences away and beginning the painting. Okay. That's the very first step that I'll take almost every painting. I will go through and figure out, okay, what I want to focus on right now, look at influences based on that, create this document, find the image that I want to work from, that I'm inspired by, write down exactly my purpose for the painting, or at least a general idea that I can remind myself, and then begin to make notes on the daily process within this. And you're like, oh my God, Chris, this is crazy. And like I said at the very, very beginning, 2 hours ago, right? Do this, pull from this how you will, details on how you feel like you want to move through a painting. if you're just like, I don't want to think and just go, do that. That's you. You know, fill into that. Your deep authenticity. That's perfectly fine. Let's check the chat. Oh, thank you for being sarcastic, Lewis. Appreciate that. Sarcasm is totally cool. Okay. That's how I'll start it. And now the next point, I need to close some of these windows in Photoshop. I do have a beast of a computer that I built, so it does pretty well with all this, which is nice. You know, streaming and everything. Hopefully the stream isn't dying. It could be just nothing but pixelation for you guys, and I'm sorry about that because I'm just showing a million things all at once, or trying to. Okay, there's Whistler. Okay, now we're just down to this image. Next stage that I'll do within this is I always go into Photoshop. I use Photoshop. I pay for Photoshop. I pay for like the Photoshop and Lightroom connection because I use them all the time with the Creative Cloud. You could use free things like Krita. Krita is amazing. When I was doing digital art, I used Krita all the time. I do not like GIMP, G-I-M-P. I think Krita is so much better. C-R-I-T-A or C-R-Y-T-A. I can't remember how to spell Krita. But I use Photoshop because I know it. Yeah, it's like $20 a month, but I use it almost every single day. So I get my use out of it. I'm going to be painting 6x9. Why 6x9, Chris? Well, normally what I would do when I'm taking on these paintings, let me stop that. I would choose like the aspect ratio, and this camera always wants to not show me. Okay. I would choose the aspect ratio of the painting that would best describe what I'm talking about in the painting. But lately I've stopped that and I've just wanted to have the same size for paintings and not have to worry about it for a while. Just kind of like, okay, how can I fit my paintings in this size? And for several reasons. Number one, 6x9 is kind of a standard size. You can find frames for it in a lot of places. 6x8 is a more standard size, but I like a bit more vertical format. That way I can sell paintings a little bit cheaper because I paint on paper. I don't have to provide a frame with it and charge extra with that, or create panels. Usually I would build a panel for these paintings, but now I can just sell the paper and you or the individual buying it can actually frame it easily. So 6x9, I don't have to think about it. I know I'm going to crop this at 6x9. I love the cropping tool in Photoshop because it gives you this rule of thirds. I use the rule of thirds all the time to figure out where placement is on things. And I want the length of the neck here. Let me see if I can go 100%. Oh, geez. No. Yeah, there we go. Now it's the full height of the image and everything. So I like the length of my neck in this one. And if I was making my own panel right now, I would probably do the full, let me get rid of this. I would probably do this full 16x9. That's a 16x9 ratio. I took this with my cell phone, so that's almost 1x2. And so it would be this very vertical thing. But I think I can get everything I want within this 6x9 ratio. So I'm using the cropping tool, and I like the width of it. If I crop down further, see how the head is going more into the center. I always like to push the figure or the central interest to the side, maybe put them on a third or something like that. And, you know, we could even go beyond the bounds of the image, right? And make everything a bit smaller. That way I get more of the head and this wonderful ceiling fan in there. For some reason, I just really love that. I can push it further to the side. But then the problem that we could run into, let me go ahead and say okay on that. The problem that we could run into on this is if I go to image size, and then let's do inches. Actually, I need to cancel that. So image size. Let's constrain the proportions first. And let's say I make this, and I don't want to resample. Let's make it 6 by 9. Okay. 6 by 8.98. Pretty close. Close enough. If I make this 6 by 9, it's not going to look any different. It's just going to connect this digital image with actual inches. And then I go to, let me zoom in, 0, 1. Now I go to my eye here, which is going to be the most detailed part of this painting. And I kind of, what is M? What is this called? This is called the, it's not going to show me, are you? Anyway, this rectangle tool or whatever, this rectangle selection tool. What I like to do is look at the width of an eye, and the width of it is less than half of an inch. Now, because if I transfer this entire image over to a 6 by 9 canvas, I'm going to have to paint an eye that is a size less than half of an inch, which is tiny. I mean, that's smaller than the width of my thumb. Okay. And if I do that, if I commit to that size, then the problem I'm going to run into is I'm going to be there with this little tiny brush and getting super detailed just to get even basic brush strokes of that eye. So we have to be careful of how small or how we crop something, especially with dealing with actual sizes. Yes, I could paint bigger. I could do this like really big canvas, you know, and then that eye would be larger and still have the same composition, but I like painting small. These are all like subjective things that I'm dealing with within this. And so I'm not going to make it that small. I'm not going to pull the cropping out and make it smaller. I'm going to actually maybe even crop in a bit so that eye is a little bit bigger, and we'll see how big it's actually going to be in a second. See, I got the nose right on this vertical line here, which is kind of nice. And I like the length of the neck. I like that the eyes are almost right in the center, but a little bit above center. Let's see what that is. So I'll go back to, I cropped it, then I go to image size. Let's not resample. Okay. Put a 6 up there. It's exactly 6 by 9. Okay. And then I can hit M. Let's go 100%. Thank you. How big is that? Oh, still only half an inch. Did I do that right? Yeah, 6 by 9. Man. Let's zoom out and let's try this. Take that away from the background. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. And what I'm going to do, nope, stop, go away. I'm going to transform this, Control T, and make it bigger and see if I can create a good composition with a larger head. And now, see, I lose the ceiling fan. I'm just going to have to get really detailed with that eye. I love this. This composition's good. Good. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, Control Shift S, and I'm going to save this to my projects folder, Swift Portrait. This is going to be Swift Portrait 1. Yes, I am totally the best at naming, you know, my paintings, right? Swift Portrait 1. Great job, Chris. Oof. So I saved it as a Photoshop document, and then I'm going to export as a JPEG as well. Swift Portrait 1, so I can show it on my iPad. And we have our composition. Then I'm going to take a screenshot of this real quick. Go back to my document. And I'm going to put it right here in my document. You know, the difference between the original photo and the one I cropped down. Yeah, good. Gives me an idea of where I'm going with this. Okay. I know exactly what I'm doing. Through all of that, I've established my purpose that's going to drive the entirety of this painting. That's going to give me an indication of where I need to move forward on the painting. If I'm having issues with a painting, that purpose is going to bring me back in line through those fundamentals that I can do. And let's go to art. There we go. Oh, Matt, you're working on your 31 5x7. It's been a busy time with family fun and all my grandparenting projects or gardening. Yes, I've been doing a lot of gardening too. Totally get it. Hot right now, everything's growing. We got a garden, so I totally understand. But I'm glad you have a purpose beyond that with your 5x7s. I'm glad you were influenced by my April painting a day on as well, right? And you're doing that. So fantastic. Anything, like if you can grab anything and be influenced by it, no matter who it is, where it's coming from, that'll get you to paint like super often and just let go of like all of this stuff, right? Because honestly, life comes in constantly. And if you're not, I could harp about this like forever. If you're not like deep into what you're doing and really thinking about art every single day, it'll be like 5 years and you haven't done anything. And Matt, I know you know what I'm talking about. I mean, that was me, right? It just, life took over. We have to be so diligent in what we're doing, like constantly, or else it'll go away. We'll wake up one day and it'll be like, oh man, it's been, years since I've painted anything, right? So I'm so glad that you're working on that. Fantastic. Make sure you share them somewhere. Send me an email where I can see them. Put them up. Share those things, man. I want to see where they're at. Give you a critique on them. That'd be fantastic. I was just talking with an artist friend yesterday, and we want to start like a critique group around here, which would be really good. Okay, so as you can see here, I did put the image up at the top left in OBS. There it is right there bouncing around. But that's not the one that I cropped down. So we need to change that reference. And I think I need to change it on another part of the stream too. There you go. There's the cropped one. Look at this tech stuff that I'm doing. For 15 years, I was doing web development. So in art, oh, it's there too. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Maybe it can be a little bit bigger there. No, it's fine. That's fine. Okay. So next steps. Oh, yes, I will. Great. Awesome, Matt. Go, go, go. Paint, paint, paint. Okay. I know exactly what I'm doing. Got the purpose. That's where I ended up with. This paper it feels like it's not level at all. Need to kind of move it over. I like working on something that's really level. And of course, the way my camera is set up, which is kind of off to the side over there, I had to, anyway. So my head is not in the way all the time. It's a little bit off to the side. And I could probably drop the camera down a little bit, but I think it's fine. You guys can see what's there. I'm not going to do it live at all. But what you're not seeing, what is hidden on the stream, the hidden secret, right? Oh, gosh, all those videos where people are like, the secret to oil painting. There's no secrets anymore. It's all out there. It's just hard work. So what you're not seeing is to the left over here, I have my iPad. And look, the image that I cropped down and everything is like instantly on my iPad. How did you do that, Chris? That's awesome. Well, I have, I do Google Docs, right? And the folder that I save that to, that image to, that JPEG image and the PSD is synced within Google Drive. And then all I have to do is just bring up Google Drive on my iPad, which is over here, actually, let me move my camera. There we go. Hi. Which is over here on my blah, blah, blah. Art table, drafting table. Okay. I bought this drafting table at Home Depot for like $185. And then I could probably zoom out. Yeah. So I built these little, and Matt, you'll love this because you're like building all kinds of stuff in your studio, right? Don't let it interrupt your artwork. Build it on the side, right? But I built these like little, wooden kind of latches that latch at the top, one for my palette so I can like just slide it left and right, and one for my iPad so I can kind of slide left and right. Okay, there you go. Yeah, don't let that distract you more from just getting to painting. Get to painting first. Okay, let's move this out of the way. There you go. So a little bit of that shadow showing, but that's not a big deal. Okay. Now I'm on paper here. So this is, oh, and I need to get that paper. 1 second. Okay. This is hot press watercolor paper. Is this Fluid? Is that the name of the brand? Yeah, Fluid. I had no idea it was named Fluid. Yeah, so I got this at my local art store. I didn't buy it online. I like the hot press watercolor paper because, like I was saying before, when you're dealing with eyes that are like less than an inch in size, if you're dealing with like super textural canvas or paper, like a cold press watercolor paper or something like that, it's going to have a lot of texture in it. You're going to get rid of that texture in order to be able to get all those details. It will interrupt a lot of the details that you're trying to get. But I'm trying to be expressive too, but I want that option to have detail in places and expressive stuff in other places, right? So hot press finish watercolor paper, this is 9x12. And because I'm painting 6x9, all I have to do is just cut 9x12 in half and I got a 6x9. So each one of these sheets, there's 15 sheets in here. I get 30 paintings out of this. And I think it was, I don't know, $15 or something like that. Pretty cheap, right? This is not coated. This paper is not coated with anything. Again, it's 6x9. And I did this thing where I have blue tape on the back of it. And then I put blue tape here to hold it. Why do I do that? Because after I draw this out, I'm going to take it into my garage and then coat it with PVA size. This PVA size from Gamblin, which is like this milky substance. Okay. It's the alternative. It's the contemporary alternative to rabbit skin glue. And I don't know much about rabbit skin glue. All I know is that you have to boil it and it stinks real bad. And I hate smells, right? They really affect me. So no, I'm going to get a contemporary alternative to that and not boil rabbit skin. Sounds archaic anyways. Poor rabbits. Ugh. Anyway. After I draw this out, I'll do a PVA size on it. What that's going to do is protect the paper, and it's also going to remove almost all the absorbency in this paper and bring it pretty close to Yupo paper. Now, let me get that too. Jeez, I should prepare better, right? Okay, this wonderful person, like weeks and weeks ago, probably more than a month ago, sent me this Yupo paper here. Yupo paper is not as a non-wood pulpy paper. I think it's actually plastic. Oh, polypropylene, 100% polypropylene. And it feels like plastic. It feels like you're painting on plastic. Oh, it's not rabbits? Well, you say the smell isn't that bad, Matt, but dude, I'm like super sensitive, so I don't know. And it's not rabbits. Why do they call it rabbit skin glue if it's not rabbits? Was it back in the day rabbit skin? I know that the PVA size from Gamblin is definitely not rabbits, right? It's vegan and everything. So I like that better. You have to tell me what original rabbit skin glue is made of. Like, I hope it wasn't rabbits, but if we know anything about Albrecht Dürer, it's probably a rabbit. I'm referencing Albrecht Dürer's painting or drawing/painting of a rabbit. The hair, that is amazing. Anyway, Yupo paper, which is like super non-absorbent, and you have to be. I get on some artists around here. They're like, "Oh, I like really slick surfaces," and I asked them, I'm like, "Do you mean non-absorbent, or do you mean very smooth?" Because they're two different things. This paper, which is a hot press watercolor paper, is very smooth, super smooth. It's beautiful, but it's also super absorbent. If I put oil paint on here, the oil is going to like seep directly into the paint, and it's going to have a completely different effect. Yupo paper, super smooth, also non-absorbent. It's almost like painting on glass. It's hard to paint on that. Indirect method on Yupo paper is great, but when I cover this, I need a drink of water. Give me 1 second. Okay, when I cover this paper in PVA sizing, it gets pretty close to Yupo paper by who makes that? Legion. Legion also does Stonehenge oil paper, which I really like. It's cheaper than the Arches oil paper, and it's very textural as well. So anyway, when I put PVA size on here, it gets pretty close to the Yupo paper as far as its non-absorbency, but it's not as non-absorbent. It's, I think, the perfect balance where, especially when you're working with like very dark shadows in a lot of places, you're not constantly pulling the paint up as you're trying to put paint down. This holds the paint a little bit better and it's very smooth, yet it's non-absorbent enough that I can almost scrape back all the way to the white paper. So watercolor paper, hot press with PVA size by Gamblin on it is what I'm loving on painting on right now. Oh, Matt says, we think it used to be. It's just hide glue made from animal collagen. So it's still rabbits. Animal collagen is part of a protein, right? It's still, maybe it's different animals. Hopefully it's like all the parts of the animals that we don't eat and they're utilizing those, you know, to make the collagen. But we still do that now. You can go buy powder protein with collagen, right? It's supposed to be best for your skin and all this kind of stuff, right? We eat that. Ugh. Sorry, I'm mostly vegetarian. I do have, you know, fish and meat occasionally, but animal lover and all that. Okay, let's draw this out. And I'm scared. I'm kind of afraid because portrait on screen live, you know, it's one of those things where with any artist, it can go one of two ways. It could go wonderfully, or this portrait could be completely awful. So we're going to draw this out next. And I'm using graphite. And look at this, like super cheap #2 pencil. I could totally go for, you know, the Staedtler nicer pencils. I have one here, or even a mechanical pencil. But for some reason, I love this idea of using super cheap materials and being so resilient that I could be out in the middle of nowhere and be an artist that expresses themselves with, you know, next to nothing. And it's totally okay. Let's see if you can see that. I probably need to darken it up a bit. Okay, maybe you can see that. The very first strokes on this are going to be super light, very light strokes, because these are just establishing pencil marks, right? Just establishing ideas of where this head's going to go, where my head is going to go, the bigger shapes of things, kind of getting it close, but not worrying about exactness just yet, getting some like basic placement. So I want to keep it light because I know I'm going to make a bunch of correcting marks. And those correcting marks are going to be darker. And we'll press a little bit harder with my pencil at that point. This is when I had hair. Like me and my partner shaved our heads one day. It was a lot of fun. 50-year-old shaving his head. Oh my gosh. If you've never done that, do it. Shave your head. Just shave it all off. Matt says, well, yes, it could be rabbits if those are the animals being processed at the time, right? It's probably whatever's the cheapest at the time. I mean, rabbits, they're inexpensive, like chickens. Their purpose is to reproduce really fast constantly to feed other animals. So, yeah, could be rabbits. Poor rabbits. I feel bad. Probably squirrels now. All these people in their yards and gardens that, as we're gardening right now in the summer in June, everybody's yelling and screaming at the squirrels that are eating their plants, especially here in the States, right? Darn squirrels, I'm going to make glue out of you and do a painting with your collagen. Wow. I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, we have got to be like so fortunate. I think about Rembrandt sometimes, and this is a person where, I guess at a certain point in their lives, they got to a point where they didn't need to make their own paints. But to make a painting, it wasn't like, oh, I just squeeze it out of the tube and just go for it, No, back in the day, they were like, oh, I gotta grind up all of the pigments with oil and stuff, and make my own paints before I can even get started. And we complain about, all of this stuff that goes into oil painting. It's so much more difficult than acrylic, and you got to worry about all the materials, and it costs money and everything. So very fortunate. I'm not going to get out there and grind my paints. The fortunate part of that is it's giving us this ability to focus more on the process rather than having to make our materials. No, we just go to a store, we get what we want, we come home, and 99% of the materials out there, even though they're super cheap, are better than what was ground by Rembrandt when he was painting, right? So super fortunate. I always want to try and bring some of that idea of how fortunate we are and where we are in this life right now to our processes. Really think about that. I'm not doing any measuring right now because even in this stage, I still have to remind myself I want to be expressive. It's more about the idea of purpose within this painting rather than, trying to express accuracy perfectly. I just don't want it to be distracting, like that's a bad portrait and I can't tell who it is. I can barely tell that it's a head or a face. I don't want to get to that point. I just want it to be enough where it's like, yeah, that's Chris. Okay, I'm looking it up. Oh, Matthew's looking it up. Found some sites that do sell pure rabbit skin glue, but then you can get more general hide glue from other animals. Oh, geez. Don't go down a rabbit hole. Sorry. Terrible pun. We're in a rabbit skin glue rabbit hole. Okay. What is, like, always thinking about when we're painting or drawing, like, what's the most important? Where's the focus? And where can we leave things simple so that it's more about the emotion of it, the expressiveness of it, rather than, oh, I need to be very detailed. Too late. Deep into the rabbit hole. That's hilarious. Man, that's funny. Rabbit hole, rabbit skin glue. So I hopefully you can see that. It's really light, really small. Look how small this is. This is my hand, right? Tiny. That eye is going to be so tiny, smaller. Ugh. So it's going to be forcing me to like be expressive. See if I can do that eye in like a few strokes. And am I going to actually get to painting today? No. Usually the way I do things is the planning stage, the writing things out, getting the purpose, getting the drawing done, and then coating the paper all one day. I mean, you can see how long this has taken. It's 2.5 hours. Of course, it's taken longer because I'm sitting here rambling on, right, about all this stuff. But no, not going to get to the painting today. Now that I have this head size in, and the neck size here, I want to look at like kind of bigger shapes. And I'm going to show this, or at least try to show this, and move my reference over. Let's hide this ref here. There we go. And that's really dark. I'm sorry, it's really dark. Probably because I have a polarizing filter that will brighten it up. There you go. All the tech stuff. So I'll look at this and I'll see generally, okay. Don't allow. Okay, go away. Okay, let's pause for some tech things right here. So this is on an iPad. Then I've had this iPad for years, second generation iPad. It's like super old. I hate the image viewer on iPad. Why? Because I can't zoom it out anywhere. And then if I accidentally tap on it, I'm going to get all these menus and stuff. So usually what I do is I go up to the three dots. I open in Procreate. And then it'll do its little thing. I'm sending to Procreate, right? Procreate does cost money, but when I get into Procreate, I need to go to my gallery. I don't want to show the bottom there. Okay. It'll be in my gallery in Procreate. Look at this. Not only can I zoom in and out on it and put it where I want it, but it takes 2 fingers to do that within Procreate. 1 finger is not going to do anything. So Procreate is so much better for manipulating an image if you're working on an iPad. You can print your image out, and that's working on things too. So I can do this where I'm measuring, I'm putting my finger against the iPad screen and it's not moving it around, but the Apple image viewer will start up all kinds of different stuff to figure that out. So I can see here as I'm measuring that the height from the bottom of the beard hair to the top of the head is larger by 1/3 than the neck and everything in the bottom. So if I do the same over here, it should go off the page about that much. Yeah, it does. I can actually make this head a little bit larger, probably bring that beard down a little bit. I did a class recently on drawing, like a beginning drawing class. That's going to be the first course that I'm building within the Painter's Path because I already pretty much have it built. And I go through a lot of like measuring and things like that as part of what I do. Let me put that reference back now. But the most important thing is getting those bigger shapes in place first, and then everything else will fall into place inside those bigger shapes. Always coming back to those bigger ideas. Okay, Matt asks, how did you start learning to draw portraits? Andrew Tischler has been reviewing the Loomis method and others. Do you use any of those? That's a really good question. And I was just talking about my drawing course. Gridding. I started with gridding, lots of grids at first. And the Loomis technique is not for, and let's be specific on here, okay? Learning to draw portraits is very generalized because I think you could break that up into multiple indications of what you're trying to do with portraits in general, with the head in general. So when you say learning to draw portraits, most of the time we're talking about how do you accurately draw a face and make it look like the person that you're drawing. And that's what we think when we say drawing portraits. And that's exactly where I started. That's where most representational painters begin. I want this to look like the person that I'm looking at. I want this tree to look like the tree that I'm looking at. Everything. That's based in accuracy. And that's I think, the beginning of drawing. And I've found that the best way to begin that and to figure out what that feels like is through gridding. And why do I say grid versus, and I get into this, all into that course, which I'm going to put on YouTube for free as well. I grid because it has a nice logical progression away from gridding as well. You can start out with a small grid and they get larger and larger and larger on your grid and progress away from the grid logically and easily. So you can move away from it and get better at it. It's kind of like training wheels. They get a little bit harder each time. Trying to get that nose in there. It's probably way too big. I have a big nose anyways, but that is definitely way too big. Bigger shapes, Chris. Look at that beard shape. See if I can get that in. But I always started with the grid and accuracy. And not only that, but having a very tight feedback loop while I'm drawing and painting. So what does feedback loop mean? So every time I would finish a drawing or painting, I would use Photoshop to analyze how accurate the drawing was. And you can look at it at the very beginning of my daily art on my website, chrisbevan.com/daily art. Go back 14 years, it's on there. And you'll see where I'm comparing digitally, like how accurate my drawing is and getting that feedback, learning my tendencies and getting better at it. And it was all about accuracy. I only moved into like Nicolaides' book, The Natural Way to Draw, which everybody doesn't think is amazing because the drawings in it suck. And that's because Nicolaides died and their students made the book for him. He'd already written it out. And then Loomis, Alan Watts. I did a lot of classes with Alan Watts. I did that. I did Newsmasters Academy. I did all kinds of different things. I did the BARG, BARGUE, that course. I would try to go through that. And if you can get through that, you're crazy. I did all of those. A lot of those are accuracy, but when you get into the Loomis head, and especially The Natural Way to Draw by Nicolaides, you start thinking about form. Accuracy first, and then understanding form, like getting a mental model or 3D understanding of form in your head. Being able to feel how, like, the eye that I'm drawing right now moves through space, like the where the cornea is, how it's in front of the corner of the eye, feeling the back of the head while you're drawing the front of the head, feeling the entire bridge of the nose when I can't even see it. So having those two different kind of ideas and moving through drawing that way, I think is really important. And when I release that whole drawing course, you'll be able to kind of move through it as well. Sorry, that's not out yet. I'll talk about it, but it'll happen soon. Soon, he says, right? But yeah, I did Loomis. I did Nicolaides, but only when I was at that form stage, when I had accuracy pretty close and I wanted to learn like how to describe form in space. And I think Loomis is super helpful and super amazing for learning how to quickly and easily describe the head in space in a very simplistic way, a very methodological kind of way. That is not a word. I just made it up. But to eventually move away from that, because Loomis, the way that he drew heads was for illustrations that needed to be done very quickly, right? And it is a method. It's a method that is finite that I think can help you get that understanding of the head, but then eventually moving away from it and moving into your own way of interpreting form. There's also an absolutely wonderful course by Marco Bucci, B-U-C-C-I, where he goes through all of the parts of the head and breaks them down and talks about simplifying and like the form in certain ways. That course was super helpful by Marco Bucci. Loved that one. Of course, he's a digital artist, but it doesn't matter. Super helpful. Talking more than focusing. So this drawing could be awful. Let's see. What do you say, Matt? Andrew is not set on one method or another. I like that. Definitely sees them all as training wheels. Yeah, 100%. I love Andrew Tischler. He's fantastic. I mean, his paintings, super detailed. I would never paint like he does, but they're gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful paintings, right? Yeah. I mean, love the Barg book. Oh, this is back in the day when I feel like, um, we feel it today. There's a lot of things out there. It's like you go hard or go home kind of ideals within exercise and artwork and everything that we kind of move through in life. Go hard or go home. I think the Barg book is like the 18th century or 17th century version of that. I'm not sure when that was made. Go hard or go home on Barg book, right? It is so hard to get through. But if you can focus and work on that, because it's all about accuracy, that, this is the atelier approach to painting and art in general. And one reason why probably the biggest reason why I don't like the Barg book is because it's this idea of, we can't trust you with paint yet. I know you want to be an artist because you're very inspired by making pictures, and you have this sensibility. But guess what? We're going to keep you from touching oil paint or color or anything but charcoal for 2 or 3 years until we say that you're ready to do it. We can't trust you with it right now. We're not going to trust you with that. So guess what? All those ideas that you had, that amazing painting that you want to make, put it aside. Not going to happen for a couple years. No, you got to slog through all of these exercises. And then maybe after that, we'll let you have some paint. But then even then, it'll be black and white paint. No, can't deal with color yet. Can't trust you yet. Still not good enough. And I dislike that. The course that I'm creating in drawing is based on this idea that you can use a grid right now to begin your painting, to learn drawing, to also move away from the grid all at the same time while making the paintings that you want to make. And that is where motivation happens, is where you stay into this idea of, I have a concept that my brain cannot let go of, and I just want to express it in paint. And even though my skill level isn't there, let's use a grid to get there. But let's make paintings now and learn to draw at the same time. We can do that. And this is another reason for me to draw, the reason why I'm drawing out paintings all the time right now, because drawing is one of those things where we have to work on it constantly. It's a constant effort. Even though we're drawing in paint all the time, it's a different thing when you're dealing with just linear expression, just the line of things. Matt says, and that's why we use the book and don't take it as a class. Right. Like you move in and out of the book. You're like, oh, let me do one of these exercises and then go back to painting for a while. That would probably be the most healthy way of going through a Barg book and not burning out on it. But it's definitely like go hard or go home, right? For the Barg book. It is crazy hard. But I did learn a lot from it. You can go into my daily art, chrisbevan.com daily art, and see that I worked. I can't remember how many exercises I got through, but I got pretty far in the book before I was just like, yep, I'm dead. I cannot go any further. Learning the whole sight size technique, which is a wonderful way of trying to learn how to draw accurately with your subject in front of you, especially if you're not working from photos. Sight size. It's really, it's a very practical way of dealing with that. Hi, got someone else in here. Oh, Russian. I love the Cyrillic language. It's so crazy, but I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Warmest greetings from Ukraine. Oh, fantastic. Sorry, I said Russia. I made a really big faux pas there. I apologize. Ukraine. Yeah. We all like Ukraine better. Let's not get too political. Sorry. Couldn't help make the comment. Thank you for joining. I'm literally almost 3 hours into this. This was going to be short, but then we know me. I'm talking about my full entire process of how I begin a painting, and I'm on to the drawing stage of it. Started out with the idea, establishing the idea. I'm just going to run through it real quick. Establishing my idea. We went through, took that idea of balancing expressive painting with accuracy. Went through a lot of influential artists that influenced me. I showed a ton of images, a bunch of amazing artists that I look at and collect on my computer, images that they've created. Looked at that and getting the understanding of how they express brushwork on the canvas, and then putting it away, writing down my purpose, having them in the back of my head, and then finding my own way of expressing, right? Now I'm on the drawing phase of this painting, and that center line is way off. I don't even know why I make a center line. I don't even pay attention to it half the time. On to the drawing phase. And again, I'll repeat, I'm on hot press watercolor paper. Going to coat this with PVA size and then start actually painting tomorrow on it. And if, the reason why I started up these streams again, I was streaming on Twitch, but as I say, I got banned for 24 hours on there because I showed a butt. That really annoys me. I mean, a figure artist, it's so tough to be a figurative artist. You know this, Matt, where it's, you run into galleries and they're like, oh, no, don't take nude. Or if you show any kind of part of the human body that's even a tiny bit naughty, right? Nope, not going to take it. And then especially with social media, you can get banned all over the place. So on Twitch, I did a painting. I was working on a painting yesterday. You can see it on YouTube. They haven't taken off on YouTube. But yeah, I was doing a painting and it showed a bit of a butt. Yeah. So I have to be careful of that. Which is kind of sad. I mean, I just love the human body. And it's not because the platforms are just being jerks about it. It's because there's people that would take advantage of it. Oh, they're really, if Twitch was really lax on, all of their, all of their rules and regulations for showing nudity or, the human body in certain ways, they would, other people would totally take advantage of it. And there's a lot of things on Twitch that go, okay, I won't get into that, right? So you got to be careful of it. Not sure where I was going with that. Oh, I started this stream because I draw and paint daily. I've been a daily artist for like 14 years now. I think 2013 till now, January 2013 till now. I keep saying 14 years, but I suck at math, so there you go. That's why I'm an artist, not even like I think I have like a 3rd grade math skill or something like that. It's just pretty terrible. But I do daily art, and I was thinking I love talking about it. I could talk for days and constantly about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, the purpose behind it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this with people. I'm going to socialize my daily practice, and it helps me talk through it. Like this. Okay, what am I doing here? I got a friend of mine named Pam, and if she watches this, she's going to be like, shut up, Chris. You're talking about like all this crazy rabbit skin glue rabbit hole stuff. Get back to what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it. So, I'm actually into a phase right now where I got the general idea of the shapes that was down, like the head and the neck. And you can see my reference, right up here. You can see that I'm working from an iPad right here. Okay. So I got the general idea, those bigger shapes down, and now I'm just going into like detail. And the way that I draw is, I love Richard Schmid. And I learned a lot from Richard Schmid, and I love the way he draws he drew. Unfortunately, he passed away, I think, in 2009. Gosh, just amazing artist. Talk about master artist that was alive in our lifetime. Just amazing. But he would use the Schmid like technique of drawing or painting, where he would start detailed in one area and then work out from that, kind of like building a puzzle. And the drawing skill that he had was just off the charts. A million times better than I do. But I like that kind of detailed kind of approach. I lack the skill to start out detailed right away. So usually I get a general idea, a general placement for accuracy, and then I go into details a little bit darker, like lighter at first, and then details eventually. Now that's where the my mustache ends right here. The lip kind of turns down. Bottom lip begins here. There's a separation between both lips. I have a vertical I can drop down to the corner of the mouth that should be about right there. A little bit shaky lines too today. I like the shaky lines, but that's mainly because I have to like the shaky lines, because coffee and yerba mate tea. So that's me, all shaky in the morning. What is it? 10 o'clock now, started at 8:30 or so. Yeah, a bit shaky lines, and that's fine because I'm dealing with expression, trying to express more. So the shaky lines are helping me with that. Naturally shaky. Hey, if you want a shaky painting, just with all kind of energy, just have a bunch of coffee, but not too much. Be careful with the coffee. Got to be careful what I say. Well, this guy Chris told me to have coffee, and now things went bad. I'm gonna sue him. Always got to be careful with that stuff. Anyway, so working this up a bit darker now. I will add in a bit of shading in place to kind of get some ideas. But for the most part, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit, because you don't need to see my entire palette. There we go. I'm going to zoom in. Also going to turn off the focus lock on it, so make sure it focuses there. Now it may focus on my hand. Yeah, I see how it does that. Okay. So zooming in a bit, because, excuse me, in a lot of this, I won't shade in all of the like shadow areas within the face. But if you look at, I have this like big Cro-Magnon, like Neanderthal brow, and I'll just map out the shape of that shadow shape. And that's what I'll do. But I'm not going to go in and kind of shade that in. I mean, you can if you want to, but I like just mapping things out. Why do I do that? I like understanding the accuracy of it. This gives me a better way to understand, how to accurately draw things in place and get those lines down perfectly. Once we get into shading of all kinds of shadow shapes and things, it gets a bit unexact to a point, and it becomes less about that and more about form. I'm in the like exactness stage of like placement of lines. Shading is one of those areas, like you'll hear a lot of teachers say, please no shading. I do the same thing, because we can use shading. We kind of like hide our inaccuracies in shading, our lack of drawing within shading. And I want to expose all of that, those problems that I have, because how are we going to get better unless we expose the problems that we have? Don't run away from them. Everybody that's listening to my voice right now, think about what you suck at in relation to artwork, and then feel into that and be like, yeah, I suck at this. Like when I'm drawing a figure, especially in person, I'll start with the head. And by the time I get down to the bottom, the feet are huge. Everything's huge. It's just blown up. I know I have that tendency. And so then I know that I've accepted the authenticity within myself. I can get better at that. We all want to like kind of run away from those faults. No, embrace them. You know how you get better? Faster? Fail. Fail fast, fail forward as quickly as you can. And then look at those failures and go, yes, awesome. I failed on this. I know I need to work on it. That's the next thing I need to work on. So I love failure. I love screwing up because those are perfect indications of how to improve. And I don't even mind failing in front of people anymore. I've done it so often. I mean, that's why I'm sharing daily art on my website. 8x10 ain't bad. No, it's not bad. It's definitely cheaper. You can get 8x10 canvas everywhere, 8x10 frames everywhere. I mean, there's no good or bad size anyways. It all depends on what you enjoy. I like a more, if I had my choice, I would say every canvas manufacturer out there needs to make like a 16:9 ratio canvas, and they also need to make standard frame sizes 16:9 ratio. It's close to 1:2 because I love that vertical aspect of everything. But if you get into that, it's like, oh, now I have to like make panels for my paintings. Like the sizing is all weird. You can't find frames, that standard frames at least. You can go out and get it framed, but then it's like super expensive for that to happen. All right. So 6:9, it's a little bit outside those standard sizes. 6:8 is a bit more standard, but it gets more into that vertical that I enjoy. When I was living in Hawaii, I did a bunch of 1:2 ratio landscapes, and I really liked it because it was very contemporary. It matches with the thing we have in our pocket all the time, this kind of cell phone. So bringing that landscape into this like vertical format of, and I need to zoom out again. I'm down there working. That vertical format of landscapes, it was a contemporary way of looking at landscapes. And I really enjoyed that vertical format. I love vertical with everything. Is there any problem with 8x10? No, not at all. There's no problem with any size. I would say probably the best thing you can do is don't pick a size of canvas or paper, whatever you paint on, just because. Have a purpose behind it. Why 8x10 for this specific painting? But if you do a painting that requires a more vertical ratio or horizontal ratio or more square ratio, then do that. There's so much of this art game that we don't pay attention to, that we don't think about. And it becomes detrimental to our art practice. And of course, we get better in all these little ways. A really good example is I was talking to, we have a thing called First Friday here in Pueblo, where all the galleries open up and everybody gets together for the First Friday art openings at all the galleries. It's so much fun. And one of the amazing landscape artists around here, her name is Liz Pruez, just beautiful landscapes. But I had some feedback for her about her paintings, because her signature on these little small paintings were gorgeous, but this really big signature at the bottom. At the very beginning of this stream, I was talking about Jeremy Lipking. I mean, godlike painter, right? He's amazing. Like, how am I going to say anything bad about Jeremy Lipking? But I was looking more at his big, huge signature than at the beautiful portrait. I'm like, come on, dude. Is it about your signature and making money, or is it about the beauty of that portrait? And of course, it's probably both, right? But I had this response of like, hey, bring a bit more attention to that signature, especially on your smaller works, because it becomes part of the composition. If you have this little small painting and this big signature at the bottom right, it becomes a part of the composition. And pay attention to that, because it could be detrimental to your painting. Like I couldn't even look at the landscape because that signature was like poking me in the eye, like, hey, look at me, look at me. So think about that. Don't just pick 8x10 because, oh, it's the first one you ran across in the, the bargain bin at Ross's, because you can get some 8x10 canvas super cheap at Ross's. Let me tell you, all kinds of canvas super cheap. And I've painted on canvas, I've painted on paper, I've painted on panels, I've painted on copper, I've painted on glass, I've painted on plastic, like reconstituted plastic, melted down. I painted on just about everything, tried all kinds of things. And I've ended up with paper for so many different reasons. But, it takes a history beyond that. Okay, so I got a ceiling fan back here that I love. What do I love about the ceiling fan? And that's a very important question. What is it about this that I like? You ever see, these kind of Disneyized like portraits, right? Or scenes within movies. And it's like the ultimate moment within this figure that has, the light bulb moment, right? There's this big light bulb above their head, but it's not a light bulb. It's like, I don't know, a joyous, like heroic kind of moment. And there's the sun in the background and they're kind of silhouetted, but it's like, whoa, right? It's almost like angels are, singing at it. That's what this reminds me of, this ceiling fan back here. It's got that, like the blades are rays of light. Rays of light shone down on me and all my sins are pardoned, right? Sorry, December's song. Look at this. It's a sun back there, basically. And I took a bunch of pictures like this. And honestly, I took these pictures and I was thinking about just the high contrast within the portrait itself. But then afterwards, I fell in love with this ceiling fan. And I want it to still be a ceiling fan. I love that it can take the place of this heroic, angelic moment, but it's still this like dark ceiling fan back there. And it is going to be dark. It's going to be like the Rembrandt ceiling fan. We looked at Rembrandt and everything kind of like just devolved into nothing. And I don't need much more than that to describe it. Okay. Just don't need a lot. Okay. Am I happy with this drawing? One of the best things about streaming digitally or doing anything digitally like this, when I'm recording, I can look at my monitor, which is right down here. It is the best way of removing yourself away from what you're painting and drawing. There's all these processes over the centuries where artists try and remove themselves away from what they're doing. All the way from the Titian mirror, which was like a blacked out mirror, right? That Titian would use and look in that, or a piece of glass. It was blacked out piece of glass that turned kind of like a mirror, would reflect the painting in that and look at that just to see value shapes. That was really interesting. I actually tried that years and years ago. Looking at mirrors, just a regular mirror, looking at your painting in a mirror helps you get away from it, turning your painting upside down. But I have found in the digital age, probably the best thing I can ever do is do a painting that, or a drawing or whatever, and then take a photo of it with your cell phone. It gets like little tiny, right? And it removes you from all of that. And you can see all of your errors, all of your problems, and it just jumps out at you right away. So I'm looking at it digitally right now on the stream. Let me get this eye in a little bit more exactly and prominently, like the left eye. The eye on the left, to be specific. to be pedantic. The shadow shapes on the nose, so important. Like, look at Nicholas Uribe, the way that he does noses. He loves noses. I've watched all kinds of his videos. He's constantly talked about like how much he loves the nose. And you can tell it's the most joyous thing is a nose on Nicholas Uribe's portrait. I mean, he revels in the nose, all those shapes. Just described beautifully. Could probably spend the rest of my life trying to do noses as good as he does noses and be perfectly happy doing it. Okay. Yeah, the first thing I see when I look away and I look at this kind of digital way of things, and I'm looking at, it looks like maybe I bumped my head there and it's a bit too swollen, you know, especially when I'm comparing against, you know, the reference, which is small. Yeah. So there are some shapes and angles that need to come in a bit there. I love these extreme angles. You know how if you've ever been at life drawing, so you know you'll have the model pose in a certain way, and then certain artists will be in this position where they'll get an extreme angle of foreshortening on the model, and they get up and they move. If you ever do life drawing, never move. Stay where you're at. If there's a light right in front of you where like there's the pole there, stay and take on that challenge of like, how can I delete this pole and still see the figure? If you're there and you're like, this is the worst position to be in for this figure, that is the perfect challenge to make you a better artist. Never move. If you see extreme, you know, something coming out at you like this, right? This hand, and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea how to draw that. That's the perfect challenge for you. Don't move, you know, walk through that fear door, get into it, fail forward, learn how you failed. That's how we get better. But seek out those challenges, seek them out, love them. That's how we get better. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. A little bit of that transition within the neck I want there. Definitely that beautiful shadow shape. Look at this shadow shape here on the neck. Oof. Bam, 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 bam. Gorgeous. There's hardly any value change within there. Could be just one big shape. Now, what I'll probably do on this is I want to respect transparencies within this because I'm working on paper. Right now it's raw. It doesn't have any kind of coating on it. But after I finish the drawing, which the drawing's done, I'm good with what that is. I'll put that PVA size on there, rabbit skin glue alternative. And all this will get a bit darker. This graphite will get a bit darker. It won't move around at all, but I'll probably, after I take a photo of this and after the stream, I'll go over the drawing with a kneaded eraser and lighten up all of that graphite. And why am I going to do that? Because when I start painting within all of these lighter areas, I know I'm going to want to scrape out a lot of the paint and get some of that paper to show through. So you can add like white to your paint to lighten up things and get very bright. That's probably the brightest thing you can get with paint. But then there's another level beyond that that gets this kind of like crazy glow that you can only get with transparency. And you can do that easily by putting down a stroke of paint and then scraping some of it off and showing that canvas through. You get just a beautiful glow that just doesn't happen like rabbit glue. Thank you, Matt. I love the little rabbit there. You'll get that glow with scraping out. That's absolutely beautiful. This is why most of the artists I talk to, they're like, yeah, I like working on non-absorbent surfaces because you have that range of opacity to scraping down to nothing. That you get a different look that you can't get by just adding white to your paper. But if I leave all of this graphite here as dark as it is, and I scrape out in places, guess what? I'm just going to show the graphite. I'm not going to show the paper. So I want to lighten up that graphite before I put the PVA size on it. And before I start painting. The painting on this is going to start tomorrow, not today. I've spent 3 hours and 12 minutes going through all this. I am so clear on what I'm doing with this painting and everything about it that I am ready to finish up today with my PVA size. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, person from Ukraine. And thank you, what is this? Sir Grizz. I'm sorry, I'm terrible on that. Thank you everyone for joining on the stream. Lewis Wolf saw that you joined as well. Yeah, check out my website, chrisbevan.com, to see all my artwork. If you want to buy my artwork, check out the rest of my YouTube channel for more videos, that aren't so long and rambly. Yeah, at least I try not to be. And my Twitch channel, which eventually I'll stream back onto, but it will be with safer content and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm going to shut up. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow because I do art daily. I'm going to share it with you, everything I do. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye. And now I got to figure out how to stop this.